What's up guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Justin Davis. Today it's all about what FPV goggles to buy in 2021.
I'm Justin Davis and this is Joe Camp's RC.
Alright guys, there's a lot of choices out there in just even the beginning of 2021, and if you're looking for your first pair of FPV goggles, I'm going to help you out today. We're going to talk about a lot of the different budget choices out there, and we're also going to break it down to the best premium pair. So if you're looking for a premium pair, we're going to talk about what's hot right now for analog. I will tell you right in the beginning of this video, most of this is about analog goggles. If you're looking for, what's the best digital FPV goggles, hands down the DJIs are still the king. So I'll put a link down below for that. If you want to benefit the channel, grab a pair of those goggles. The V2s are out. There is the second batch coming up hopefully soon and shipping out to customers worldwide, so you can definitely grab a pair of those. They're hands down the best goggles in the world right now that people are using, professional and non-professional in FPV. So for analog choices, people are still flying analog. Analog is not dead yet. A lot of people think, well, analog is dead. No, actually, it's still the economical choice. Even though some of these analog goggles still cost as much as the DJI goggles, around $500, and some even more. I think the Orcas are still up there in price. But we're going to talk about some really fantastic goggles today. I'm going to tell you my daily drivers, what I use every day, and then I'll also give you some options for a little nicer than what I use. And a fantastic new pair of goggles came out from Skyzone. These are the O2Os. So yeah, I was using all of these different series from Skyzone the last 2 or 3 years, maybe 4 years now, and I'm preferring Skyzone over Fatshark. Yeah, I said it years ago on my channel. I prefer Skyzone over for Fatshark because the original O3Os came with internal module, no extra module needed. The out-the-door price is what you pay, and then you just upgrade the antennas and you're off and running. Use a 3S2200, put it on that long cable in your pocket and you're good to go. The newer ones have dual diversity module bays up here, so the O4Xs can accept 2 different receivers. Well, actually you can do 2 steady views. I haven't tested 2 different receivers yet, so yeah, I need to do that for you guys, I know. But these are a little bigger, and we're going to talk about the pros versus cons, and also, price versus what you get, or if you can just slide back and get the O2Os. These are OLED, and I know that the Fatshark V6, the Attitude V6 just came out. However, they're not OLED. I'm looking back in the specs, and they're something different. They're not actually OLED, so these are going to have more clarity. Even though they're a little less resolution, you're probably going to be able to see the image a little better in the O2Os, and they're under $400, so right about the same price point as the Fatshark Attitude V6s. So it would be hard to make a decision for me unless I saw them both in person, and I don't have the Attitude V6s yet, but I will get them. I will put all these links down below, and you can go and look at the specs for yourself and then try to get an idea of what you would like. But it also depends on what you want to do with your goggles. So do you want video out? Do you want it to go to your phone? And the new DJI V2 goggles will display the FPV view on your phone, which is a pretty cool feature. But the V2s don't really have a whole bunch of extra additional options like higher resolution and the things that you think that DJI would include in the V2s did not happen, and I knew that was going to be the case. It's the same mold. They didn't make them smaller like our traditional analog FPV goggles. Everybody thought they might come out with a totally new frame, but hey, when manufacturing's already set for one particular product and it's successful, why change, reinvent the wheel, right? So they didn't do that, but they just added a few more options for you guys for the V2s, which is still kind of the same animal. It's like a Honda Accord. If the Honda Accord is great, then why change it up drastically from one model to the next, right? So what works, and I've still seen Honda Accords on the road from like 1990s Honda Accords, just like Hondas drive forever. But so do Skyzones, and my Skyzones have never let me down. I've had 2 pairs of Fatsharks bite the dust, blackout. So when your goggles black out, you got to send them back to the manufacturer, and you're starting over from scratch and hoping that you get them repaired and back within months and months waiting on the repair, hopefully, or you buy a new cheap pair of goggles in the meantime to float you through. So let's go ahead and let's look at these new Skyzone O2Os. They are super fantastic, and they're smaller and lighter like I like versus the O2X or the O4X here. The O4X is a little bigger, and they're a little heavier as well. So there are some benefits about these because they are super high resolution. But we're going to talk about all that on the bench, and let's go ahead first and let's look at the O2Os, and I will show you what Skyzone is now offering under the $400 range. Sort of mid-range goggle.
All right, guys, here they are. These are the new Skyzone O2Os, and these are around the same price as the Fatshark Attitude V6s. So why would you buy these over the V6s? We're going to talk about some of the spec differences in the O2Os and the Attitude V6s. Those are made by Fatshark, and I'm not a Fatshark hater. I actually love Fatshark, and I also like Skyzone. I prefer Skyzone, and most of the time in my channel you do see me flying the O3Os, and that's what I use for my analog goggles. So mostly in this video today it's going to be all about the analog goggles again, for the best choice right now for 2021, early 2021, and I'll tell you what I'm still using on the daily. So the O2Os just came out, and it's interesting because Fatshark also released the Attitude V6s, which are higher resolution. They have different screens on them. However, these are lower resolution. Why are these lower resolution than the Attitude V6s? I don't know. They're kind of like the competitor to the V6s. So I would think that the O2Os would have a higher resolution. However, I'm hoping that the OLED here makes a difference in clarity and the fine detail that we see on the screen, because OLED versus LCD or the Lycos, which is liquid crystal on silicon displays that the V6s have, those are different screens. Now, Lycos, some would call them, Lycos screens are different than OLED screens. The liquid crystal over silicon, it's a more expensive screen to make than the super popular OLED. They just are. They're more expensive to manufacture. I know from China because I talk to people in China all the time. Intel used to make Lycos, and it's kind of going the way of the buffalo right now. It's they're not being made anymore. So Intel quit making them. They were just too expensive to manufacture, and the Lycos screens don't have that great of black value. So if you're looking for a black point that's going to be pretty sharp, that's going to make a huge difference when you go to change the brightness and contrast, because the brightness and contrast is not going to work as good on a pair of Lycos screens. Now, I've heard reports that these V6s look phenomenal, but you need to know that a little bit of background history on liquid crystal over silicon displays. So that is just in a nutshell, really quickly. They used to manufacture a lot of displays with the Lycos style technology, but they're not really using it anymore. So that's totally up to you. But I will get a pair of Attitude V6s, and I will absolutely compare them to these. And even though these are lower resolution at 640 by 400, these have OLED. So I'm thinking that these are going to be a little brighter and maybe a little bit better as far as the clarity department, but we'll see. So and these are the same price. So yeah, the nice benefit about these is that they do have the built-in steady view receiver, so that's nice. Its steady view receiver is awesome because it takes two different images and combines them into one to give you the best looking picture on the screen. You also get quite a bit of cables in the box. You get this longer XT60 cable here, and this is great because I usually use a 3S2200 or 3000, and I stick it in my pocket. That way it takes the weight off my head, and it feels a lot better when I'm flying. The goggles feel way lighter. If you're flying for long periods of time like I am, that's great. We have head tracking cable in here. We have a headphone cable. We have the audio out cables here. You do have 3.5 millimeter headphone port on there for audio out as well if you need it. You have this nice fancy box as always. And none of these manufacturers really make a case that fits the goggles in there with the antennas on. And speaking of antennas, what's nice is that this comes with pretty much the same setup that I've been using on my 030s for years. So I'm hoping that the dB on this one matches what I've been using from Foxeer. This is the Foxeer Echo patch, and this is around 8 dB. So it is really good. So they stopped making the longer version of this, which is probably good because this shorter version, it's just more compact and it's not going to hang out there and bend around as much, and it's not likely to break and sever like this one did. So this one's been bent up so many times or bent around or whatever in transport. I rarely ever use a case because I'm always running out to fly super quick for you guys. There are some differences between these two pair of goggles though. These are my daily drivers. I use these all the time. They are fantastic and they have not let me down. These are 1024 by 768 resolution, and these are 640 by 480 OLED. But yeah, so these are more expensive still, and I think they actually raised the price on the 030s because they're so popular. And I hate it when China does that, when they increase the price when something's popular. You guys have talked about it, and I've seen it myself, so it does happen. The other alternative to the 030s and the 020s or the 04X. There's so many different pairs of goggles out there, but the 04X comes in a little higher resolution than all the rest of them, obviously, because you're paying close to $600 for this pair of goggles for analog, which is the most premium set of Skyzones you can buy right now. The 04Xs, they're a little bit bigger, a little less lightweight than the Skyzone 020s, not much though, but they have some different features on here, so they have way more stuff packed into these versus what you get on a more mid-range pair of goggles. The 020s are kind of mid-range. These are the 030s. I always consider kind of upper range, but they are a good deal right now in comparison to the 04X. So if you're the guy that has to have everything, just grab a pair of 04Xs. They have the steady view receiver there, and you have the alternate module bay on the left-hand side over here, on the right-hand side. And you can put the same receiver in there. So get another steady view module and put in here. I don't believe you can mix them up. So that's one thing to be considered. But if you wear glasses, you want to get the Cobra X's. And I'm just thinking about the IPD adjustment on these and the focus wheels. Very important. If you wear glasses, they say that this pair of goggles, the 04X's, are pretty much the pair of goggles that somebody that needs glasses that can they have such a large focus range that you can get these in focus even if you wear glasses, which is kind of impressive to me, that they can make that happen. And that's the only pair of goggles out there in the industry that have such a large focus range and IPD adjustment here. The IPD adjustment, if you're still paying attention, is the distance between your pupils. So when I move the IPD adjustment, it moves it there on the horizontal axis. So what that does is it brings it into focus on the individual screen on, say, your right eye first, and then you do your left eye, and then everything is more in focus, and then you can go even further with the focus wheels, which I think is great. You also get the fat strap with these, which is nice. And again, these are close to $600 right now. I believe they started out around $499. I'm not sure why they went up, but cool to see that you get a similar antenna setup to my daily drivers, which Skyzone knows. They've watched this channel, just like all the companies in China, and you guys know that this is my standard setup. It's an old school AX2 from Lumineer, 5.8 right-hand circular polarized antenna here, and the Foxeer 8 dB patch antenna on the left-hand side over here. So the biggest difference between like Fatshark and Skyzone for me and my channel, if you do your own YouTube channel or you want to share your analog DVR videos with Facebook groups and things like that, the DVR and the recording format on Skyzones is absolutely hands down better than Fatshark's. Fatshark has used a very cheap DVR for many years now, and for a $500 pair of goggles, I always expected kind of a better DVR than what they provide, which is kind of a bummer. I also like the fact that Skyzone puts their SD card port on the very bottom right here, And these guys will take up to a 64 gigabyte, I believe, maybe even up to a 128, whereas Fatshark only has a support up to around 32 gigabytes. So you can use larger SD cards in the Skyzone goggles, which is cool. Now, the other thing is that the voltage on these, the voltage range on all of these goggles right here is 2 to 6S. Yeah, long pause, silence, 2 to 6S. That's incredible. That is fantastic, because what that means is if I'm out in the field and I have my XT60 adapter here, I've got it plugged into the goggles, and my 18650 battery dies, so I'm using that, or I'm using the 3S2200 in my pocket, that dies, and then I'm left with a bag full of 4S1300 batteries, which are the premier race squad battery. I can grab a 4S battery and plug it into that. I've never actually plugged in a 6S battery because it kind of makes me nervous to do that, but you have the option to grab another battery that is within your range in your bag of batteries. I'm pretty sure most of you guys don't have over a 6S battery in your bag, so that's really nice that you can do that with all these goggles. Now, Fatshark is only from 2 to 3S, so sometimes, I mean, I've never done it before, but I'm always, wanting to grab that 4S battery and plug it into my Fatsharks. Don't try it. You will immediately fry your screens. Now, the other thing about the screens is this, and you need to know this. Now, this is from 5 years of FPV experience with flying Fatshark and Skyzone goggles, and this is no BS. None of the Skyzone goggles have ever died on me. I still have Skyzone goggles from 4 or 5 years ago that still work. They have the built-in module. You can plug in a battery today, you can go out and fly them, and you can record the DVR. They still work after like 5 years. How many pairs of Fatsharks have died on me in the past 5 years? 2. So I had a pair of HDOs that died, and I had a pair of HDO 2s, Dominator V3s that died. So, and what happens is the screens just go black one day, and then you've got to send your goggles in to repair, and it can take 3 to 6 months to get them back. So you might be buying a cheap budget pair in the meantime just to float you through until you get your Fatsharks back. So that's not super good. That's one thing to think about there. So you also have the option for a budget pair of goggles from the Skyzone. They're the Cobra X's, and those are 1280 by 720 resolution. I wish that these had been, a little better resolution, but I feel like with the difference in the OLED screens versus the Lycos, we're going to compare that. We'll find out. I know a lot of guys are just jumping right into the Attitude V6s, so it's a really good idea to wait and let me tell you guys the truth about what they look like in comparison. These screens do appear to be different type of screen than the 030s. The 030s have I think they're a much bigger picture. So if you like a nice big 4:3 or 16:9 image, these will appear much bigger. The image appears a little further away, which for some people, they don't like a really big picture, FPV picture right up in their face. Sometimes things at the bottom of the screen get blurred out, and that's some of the other problem we have with Fatshark is that some of the OSD on the bottom gets blurred out because your eyes can't focus because the image is too close. And I've talked about that with manufacturers before, and that does happen, that they have to get their screens the right distance away from the pupil to be able to have everything in focus, and that's a challenge for some of these companies. But the IPD adjustment on these are 59 to 69 millimeter, and if you don't know what IPD is, it's interpupillary distance, and that's just the distance between your pupils. So you're right, eye has a little further over, and you can adjust that with these. Now, the only bummer about these, in my opinion, is that while we have IPD adjustment, we don't have focus wheel on here. So in 2021, I'd like to see focus wheels on all goggles that are binocular style goggles. I just like to see that. They can do it. I know they can, but they're also trying to cut costs for you guys and not make these $500. So under $400 with OLED is great. So these are a mid-range pair of goggles, and I don't have my foam faceplate on here right now because they sent me the wrong one. It was a little too thick, and it was pushing my eyes too far away from the screen. So if you buy these, you will need to use a thinner foam pad here for getting your eyes a little closer to these screens. And that's because of the distance from the pupil where they have these screens set up at. And they're not adjustable back and forth like the box goggles are, like Cobra X and others. So that's one thing about these goggles, that you need to have your eyes just a little closer in. And for me, these goggles they're a little bit wider than the 030s. So if you have a more narrow face, the 030s are great, and they're kind of like made for people in China. But you also do get two different face plates in here. You can see this faceplate comes out a little further, and they make one that goes in. So I didn't get two different faceplates for this one. I only got this one right here. So I think that's going to be one big thing for people out there. If you have a wider face, the 020s will actually work better for you. And a lot of Americans have larger face. Now, these are also around 210 grams in the weight category. The field of view on these is 29 degrees. The field of view on the Fatshark Attitude V6 is 39 degrees. So and they're also switchable between 4:3 and 16:9 mode. So and 1280 by 960 resolution is again higher than this pair of goggles. But again, we're going to see about that. We'll see what happens there. And the Attitude V6s are also just a little bit lighter, coming in at 199 grams versus my 020s, which are 210 grams, just a little heavier, which is not a total deal breaker or anything. But you have an IPD adjustment on the Attitude V6s from 54 to 74 millimeters, so a little larger IPD adjustment. So if your eyes are a little wider or more narrow, they actually go a few millimeters more narrow than the IPD adjustment on the 020s, which is 59. So 59 at the lowest point in the center, 54 on the Attitude V6s, so they go in just a little further. And then you have a little wider range on the IPD for the Fatshark Attitude V6s at 74 millimeters versus 69 millimeters. So about 5 millimeters difference there. And I'm not sure that that's going to make a huge difference for most people out there, but that is something to be noted. And the IPD adjustment on the 030s are 57 to 69, so that's about standard for those. And these are 1024 by 768 resolution, but these are also OLED goggles. And again, I feel like these are definitely superior DVRs to Fatshark. The Skyzone 04X, these are also OLEDs like we talked about before. IPD adjustment on these are 58 to 71 millimeters. So again, like Fatshark Attitude V6s has a larger IPD adjustment. And I believe the Fatshark Attitude V6s also do have a focus wheel, hopefully. I haven't seen them in person yet. I didn't watch Joshua's review on them, but I believe he seems to like them. These are also the heavier out of the bunch, and the bigger and wider out of the bunch. You can see these are quite a bit more bulky, and these come in quite a bit heavier at 267 grams. But again, you also get focus wheel adjustment there. So if you have, you're nearsighted or farsighted or whatever, you should be able to get the 04Xs in some type of focus for your eyes. And these screens look quite a bit different than any of these other goggles. So these are more updated, a little higher quality screen on the 04Xs. But in my opinion, right now, everybody should really take a look at Skyzone. I've said this for years, and it's great because the new receiver does a lot better for penetration through flying behind trees and around your house. If you're trying to fly around your house, I've noticed that with DJI digital FPV, I can go a lot further behind things versus my analog cameras. They just tend to fuzz out and break out quicker. So in my opinion, for 2021, if you want to buy the best goggles out there, buy the DJI goggles. There's no other HD system in the world right now better than DJI. They're ruling the pool as far as the resolution, the penetration. The DVR looks great. You can fly the Vista, or you can fly the Air module with the onboard 1080p DVR. SD card support on there, so that is really, really nice. But Skyzone 030s, again, are my daily driver, so I would recommend these still, even in 2021. So if you just have to have a pair of goggles right now, and you don't want to wait, and you want a really nice pair of OLED goggles with a built-in receiver, grab these. These are fantastic. Get the fat strap. Since these don't come with the fat strap, I'll put the link for the fat strap down below if you decide to buy the 020s. Very compact and super bright screens with the MOV format, SD card support, file format, which is also really, really awesome. I hate to see a pair of goggles with AVI format, because the H.264 looks a lot better in my opinion, and it's just a much better format. And even some of the newer ones are coming out with H.265, which is also awesome. So I will also put some links down below for my favorite antennas that I'm flying right now. And there's that shorter version of this Foxeer 8 dB patch antenna, which will, get you 3 miles out there. I've been out 3 miles in the same stock setup right here. Without even a ground system. This pair of goggles does great for short range flying and even long range with FPV wings and fixed wings. So great pair of goggles, and just kind of a little brother over here to the 030s, and another choice for this year coming up. And again, we have pretty much all the same stuff and features on the bottom of this. We have head tracking with these. If some of you guys are doing that, you've got HDMI out right there, HDMI in for watching movies, AV in as well, USB Android support. The newer ones have micro USB on them, so a little nicer micro USB. You don't have to fiddle with which way the cable goes. You just stick the cable in there, which is kind of nice. And again, SD card support up to around 64 gigabytes, I believe. So larger SD card support for these. I won't have to switch them out quite as much as Fatshark, limited to 32 gigabyte. But anyway, guys, I'm not a Fatshark hater, and I'm just making a clear comparison here for you guys. And when the Attitude V6s come in, we will check those out on the channel. And as always, guys, hopefully you learned something today about FPV and focus adjustments and resolution of all the different popular ones out there. And I'll put the links down below. You can go and look at the specs for yourself. If you want to ask a question down in the comments below, please do that, and I will absolutely try to answer your questions. But thanks again, guys. I'm Justin Davis. Be well out there, be safe, and stay away from the Rona. I'll see you on the next one, guys.